morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hate to break up all the conversations, but I wanted to welcome you and thank you for coming. And we're really excited about the opportunity to tell you a little bit about our building. My name's Dean Frega, and I'm going to be your MC tonight. And we have a wonderful panel here who's going to tell you a little bit about different aspects of the building. And the basic plan is they're going to talk about certain aspects, and then we'll field some questions, and we'll move on to the next group, dealing with different aspects of the building, including how we'll facilitate how we teach now, how it's given us a renewed focus on student-faculty research, and how the building promotes integration, collaboration, and community. And we have people to tell you a little bit about each of those. So what I'd like to first do is have the panel briefly introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves.
Absolutely. You called us wonderful. Thank you, Dean. I'm Paul Bonvalet. I'm chair of the chemistry department. This is my 15th year. My brother's a graduate from Worcester, class of 2000 in physics. This is an exciting place to be, and this is an exciting time to be here. I look forward to telling you more about teaching and research in this new facility.
Hi, I'm Sarah Martin. I'm also a faculty member in chemistry. I've been here about 10 weeks. My tenure on campus matches that of this building, more or less. And I have been so privileged to be a part of all of this.
I'm Seth Kelly. I'm in the biology department and the neuroscience program. I've been here 5.5-ish years, so a little bit between everybody else so far. And I guess I'll be talking to you a little bit in a couple minutes about sort of how this new building is sort of fostering new research connections between students and faculty. So.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Regan. My position actually came with the building, so I'm the Whitmore Williams assistant professor. This is my 4th year, and I'm a computational biologist. So I'll tell you a little bit about this new direction in which we now engage our students in.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Sanchez. I'm a senior biochemistry molecular biology major, and I will be touching on the student perspective of this building.
I'm Miles Parker. I'm also a senior biology major, environmental studies minor, and I'll also be talking about the student situation in Knowlton and the new building as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carlo Moreno. I am now beginning my 2nd year here. I'm in the environmental studies program, soon to be major. We are very excited about that. So I will be talking about our new major and how we fit into this building. I'm very excited to be part of it.
Thank you, panel. So I guess our first question, we'll direct it at Sarah and Paul, and they can tell us a little bit about how the new building will change or enhance how we teach.
As you well know, the College of Worcester is all about teaching. Everything that we do is student-centered, and there's a famous precept in organic chemistry where you start at the end and you work your way backwards and figure out your pathway by beginning with the end goal. So rather than building a classroom and then simply wondering, oh, how are we going to teach in this? What we did was we spent years of conversation talking about how do we truly want to teach, and therefore how can we bring those physical facilities in alignment with those new patterns and those modern methods of instruction. You may have seen some of the older classrooms in Severance and or what used to be Mateer were very stadium seating. Everything was focused in on the teacher. The desks were unmovable, the chairs sometimes as well. It was very challenging to do group work. It was very challenging to talk with your neighbor. It was very challenging to bring students into clusters to have them do the kind of collaborative work that we wanted them to be able to do. So we started from the precept of leveling the floor, both figuratively and literally, a lot of flat floors in our renovated spaces here that bring us into alignment with how we want to teach. We do have some short mini lectures. We do have some things we project on screens. We write on boards. We'll do things like that. But many times we'll mix it up with our students. Students will sit in clusters, talk amongst your group, solve this problem, work on this question, discuss amongst yourselves. And it makes it easier for the teacher to walk amongst the students. And that was another barrier as well. The stadium seating was very much us and them. And it was hard to walk up those steps and wander into the middle of a crowd of students to answer a question. So everything that we've done really has been brought into alignment between the philosophy of how we want to teach, modes of active learning, right? Ted Williams famously once said, learning is not a spectator sport. So we want to bring people together. We want to be able to interact with those students. And we want them to be able to feel like they're part of the community, that the teacher is there as a coach, not the sole fountain of knowledge. So that's the approach that we took in designing the renovated severance spaces. That was the ongoing conversation for biology and the other programs under the roof of Williams.
So these tables that you're sitting at are a good example of what Paul's talking about, where you can shift the tables around and form small groups.
Mobility is key.
So as somebody who has come into this building having already been designed, I will speak to the fact that I've taught in other locations, and I've been a student at other buildings as well, and I've never been part of a place that has so much functionality and modularity in terms of what you can do with your classroom. And yes, the tables here are an excellent example. The rolling boards that you can write on. Whiteboards kind of in the round make it possible for me to integrate group work and visuals such as slides or a video seamlessly throughout my class. And so that sort of has me talking a bit about the technology here. All of these classrooms are easily able to accept a computer that can, interface with everything you're doing in the classroom in all sorts of creative ways. And I'm just learning how to do a lot of that thinking and building those things into my teaching. I'm really excited that this is a building and that will and has classrooms that enable me to think about all of those possibilities, things that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have so many options with furniture and technology and spaces for students to write or myself to write.
What do you guys, you're familiar with the think tank idea, correct? Have you guys been able to use that? And maybe you can explain to them how that think tank idea works?
When you say think tank, you mean a cluster of students commonly working on a problem?
With the classroom that's attached to the lab, and you can toggle back and forth.
Oh, that's what a think tank is.
That's what it is.
Yeah, we have lots of those, actually.
That thing.
I called it a door in between the classroom and the laboratory. Yeah, we have think tanks. It's a very simple but a fantastic idea, where there should be low barriers of transport of students in between a laboratory and a classroom. It's a very simple idea, but the old model in chemistry was to gather students up for pre-lab in one classroom and then tromp them down the hall or maybe up a flight of stairs to go into the lab. What we have now is a think tank model where the classroom and the laboratory share a common wall. There's a door in between the two of them, and students can move seamlessly between pre-lab and doing their work in the laboratory and then return back to the classroom for data analysis, conversation, things like that. It's really a marvelous model that has, I didn't know what I was missing until I actually had my own think tank, right? Somebody gets paid a nickel every time I say that. We have it in general chemistry, organic chemistry, and several of the biology Williams building, those classrooms as well. In that, and Williams has some really nice ones where you have the glass walls in between the classroom space and the laboratory space. So our ability to interface with students in different ways in different physical locations in a single, I remember the architect said, this is the heart, right? This is the heart of the laboratory and the classroom. There was even an image of a heart superimposed on top of the floor plans. And it really does feel that way. We have home base for general chemistry. We have home base for organic chemistry. We have that central core that really makes it feel, that faculty and students alike, that this is a place of our own.
I'll also,
Go ahead,
one
sir.
last comment I wanted to add is that all of the glass here makes it really wonderful to see what all of my excellent colleagues are doing. So I get new ideas every day by being able to sort of peek into their teaching as I'm walking past. So that means students and faculty alike are sort of participating in this education, even if you're just walking down the hallway, which is, has been a really, really fun thing for me.
That's a really good point. I'd like to take a moment now and invite questions from the audience about teaching and how it's been transformed with the new building. Is it Irvin?
I have a question. Just walking down the hallway yesterday when I first got here, and hearkening back to my days, not here, but at another school. There are boards everywhere and markers everywhere, and there's got to be an intentional reason behind that. We used to use paper and pencil and thing and then lose it, so I'm curious to hear the thinking behind that.
I think there's something to be said for working, maybe you're still working together. I often see students working together in groups at whiteboards as part of their classes. And then that's a way to sort of crowdsource information as well. Not every group will come up with the same idea or thought or answer to a question posed by peers or instructor alike. And so you get a lot of great opportunities for discussion if it's not everybody just holding up their paper. This is what we said. You know, they can actually draw and write for others to see and help them to refine their ideas.
I think that's a great idea. It's almost like social media in a primitive form, right? You'll go to the whiteboard, look at some student work, and you say, like. And you can go around. It really allows a greater level of visibility of the student thought process, not just the answer, but the process that a student uses.
And almost on the flip side, accountability too.
There is that. That is our friend, absolutely. Sometimes we'll send lone students to the board, but oftentimes there's strength in numbers. Yeah.
John here had a question?
Oh.
So this building is essentially love made visible. I heard that term last night at the opening of the alley. I would like to know the role of this building in terms of recruiting quality students and quality faculty, as it may have played a part for you.
Oh, when I interviewed in November of last year, so almost a year ago, I got to wear a hard hat and a vest, and Mark Snyder took me through the building. It was so exciting. Not only as somebody who was trying to envision what it would look like in its finished form, but also Mark's excitement about the fact that the vision that everybody has created for this building was coming to life. So just even being a part of that excitement was wonderful. And yes, of course, Worcester had an excellent advantage in terms of recruiting me because of the fact that I'd be able to interact with this new building and the new classrooms and technology. I would say that the obvious high quality and support that I knew I would get from my new colleagues has to be ranked higher than that in my decision making. But yeah, a new building is always up there. And I do see many people coming through, prospective students and parents, already enjoying this building and thinking about possibilities for their own Worcester education. So that's exciting as well.
I'll just add that Mateer, the tour groups never went through Mateer. That pretty much says it all right there. We have time for one more question, and we'll move to the next topic.
Back in the old days, when I was a student here, learning was a much more independent effort, but now we see a definite shift to a more of a collaborative effort. How does that kind of dovetail when you get into independent study days?
Have you heard the line, independent minds working together? I
I
would argue, absolutely, I would argue that we are integrating both the independence and the collaboration. I think a student can only be an effective collaborator or an effective partner if their own level of individual preparation and their own level of individual input can benefit the group. I think our students still feel the same pressure they always have to do the homework, to do the assignments and so forth. But I think the incentive now is not for the grade, but to be able to contribute to the group. And so thinking forward then to independent study, I think the point of independent study, as Howard Lowry famously said, is to allow students to reach the best of their own abilities, to paraphrase that line, is that the students then feel, oh, this is how I learn, this is how I contribute, this is how I become part of a group. So the student is not performing with the mindset of, I want to earn a grade or I need to satisfy somebody else. It's more of an intrinsic motivation that the student undergoes where they want to contribute to that professor's collaboration that they've built together with that professor in independent study. They want to contribute to that community of students and classmates, both in the classroom and in the research lab. I think our students are they've always been motivated to contribute, but I think it's much more explicit now that there's a combination between the individual preparation and the individual learning, and then the ability of that learning to contribute to the better of the group, whether it's in a classroom, laboratory, research, whatever context.
I think it's a great concept because I think as students, as you're going through that learning process, you tend to become like the group you're hanging out with.
Yes.
And so if you're kind of falling behind a little bit, you don't want to be embarrassed by people who are succeeding around you, so you tend to elevate yourself up, which is sort of going to benefit you in the end there.
Good point.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the next topic, and Seth Kelly and Enzo are going to tell us a little bit about how the building will enhance our student-faculty research program and perhaps provide new opportunities.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so I guess the thing I'll kind of mention or just kind of talk about briefly is just sort of some of the ways in which this building, some of the equipment that's in this building is leading to new research directions and new collaborations actually between students and faculty and between different faculty labs. So, you know, as part of this building process, we've added quite a bit, I think, to the sort of research infrastructure at the college. Things as sort of wide as the greenhouse upstairs, to new pieces of equipment. We sort of have a nice microscopy suite now, essentially, that we're sort of trying to use in many different aspects of our curriculum, both in classes and in independent study research projects. And we're using these pieces of equipment in what I would say is sort of a scaffolded way, right? So that students sort of early on in their sort of career here at the college, or their time here at the college, they're sort of using some of this equipment in a sort of an introductory way, right? So they're kind of learning the sort of the nuts and bolts of how to run a microscope, for example, right? At a basic level. And then as they get into more and more advanced types of research projects like independent study, they sort of move to more advanced pieces of equipment. And so I think this is a really good, you know, learning opportunity for the students because they leave the college really able to step into jobs or graduate degree, you know, programs already kind of one step ahead. They know how this equipment works. They know the ways that they can use this, the types of questions they can answer using certain pieces of equipment. And I'm a cell biologist, so I tend to sort of think along those type of lines from microscopy and that kind of stuff. But I think this is very true across the board, whether we're talking about microscopy or different ways to approach, you know, sort of experimental questions related to, you know, the greenhouse or computational biology. So, you know, we're trying to sort of provide the students with new ways to sort of, you know, grow their learning through sort of scaffolded experiences in research. I think another way that some of the building has sort of led to sort of an increase in the research at the campus is just in new types of collaborations as well. So one of the questions was about sort of independence versus collaborative learning, and I think the way that this new building is structured, it really lends itself towards collaborative experiences in research. Most of the faculty members here, I think all the faculty members here, share a research space, so all of their students are also sharing that research space. So, you know, in our space upstairs, there's 4 faculty and probably 15 or 20 research students that are kind of all sharing that space. Now, they're not all in there at the same time, thankfully, but they do sort of, you know, come across one another. They come across new ideas, new projects, and even, you know, students they may not even have met before. So I think it gives them a chance to learn a lot more about a more broad collection of topics than they might be if they were just sort of, you know, kind of siloed in this one particular lab and they never came into contact with other labs. And this is actually the way that most graduate schools are sort of going now, I think, too. A lot of new lab buildings in sort of R1 type of research institutions are very collaborative in that respect too. It's a kind of an open floor plan where multiple labs are sort of sharing the same space. They might work on a similar topic, but from different angles, and so you get a lot of collaborative type of research projects there too. So I think this sort of open floor plan idea that we've kind of built into this building is also kind of helping get those students ready for that sort of experience as well.
I would even add that industries are.
And industry is, yeah, as well. I think that was, yeah, I think that's what I'll say so far.
So I want to shift gears to a sort of new area that we are exploring in our curriculum and with our students in research, which is computational biology. And computational biology really wasn't on the table a while ago, but with the advent of us being able to produce impossible amounts of data about biological systems, it's becoming more and more important to take that data, which kind of looks like a puzzle the size of this campus, all nicely piled up here, and no picture on the box. And it's becoming more and more important to take those puzzle pieces and start to painstakingly assemble them. And once you start doing that, it doesn't stay two-dimensional. It gets really crazy. And so being able to build computational models of how this thing works, and then is the best way we know of right now to really stress test your thinking. So a model would be a really good stress test of what do I think is going on right now, and then you allow that model to bump into reality, and then it fails, and then you fix it, and then that's how you learn what you don't understand yet. So that's what we are trying to teach our students, and it's really kind of a new thing for them to wrestle with because they're used to the traditional ways of generating the data, so they're really well grounded in how you make data, but now we're trying to teach them also how to make sense of too much data. And so we've been exploring this idea across our curriculum to start to introduce the basics of these concepts early on, and by early on I mean sort of mid-level, upper level classes, so after sophomore year and so on. And then since I got here, and also thanks to Bill Morgan's research, we also explored this during IS. So we have IS projects dedicated entirely to computational biology, where students wrestle with a small corner of this ginormous pile of puzzle pieces and try to put together how, at least in my group, molecules interact with each other to create emergent behaviors that then lead you to understand how a cell will behave in certain environments. So that's been really fun for me, and it started when I got here, but the building really, really helps pull my group together at least, because now we have a dedicated computational biology lab, which is a bunch of computers, so it's pretty simple as far as that goes, but it allows me to have my students together. And while they're always exploring very different questions, their methods are quite similar, so they can play off of each other to figure out, what am I doing wrong? How do I approach this? So there's been a lot more collaboration among my students, even though their questions can be wildly different from wildly different areas of biology. And so we do a lot of IS group meetings because of this, and that has been really helpful for them to also form a support group so that when they tackle this new thing that none of their peers are doing, they can rely on each other to explain to each other how it's going and just be there for each other. And I think it's also starting to show a promise in helping us collaborate across, so outside of my research area, because that space can also be used by other students who maybe have a lab project, but they have a computational aspect to it. So if they need to come in and use the computers and have a community of people who are doing computational biology, they can also do that. So that's hopefully starting to happen. I just had the first request along those lines. So yeah, so that's why I think having the new building and having this new direction for us is going to be really important. And knowing how to at least engage with computational biology is going to be critical for our students who go into research, because it's becoming a more and more prevalent part of how research works in biology.
Could you comment a little bit, because you're right, but not every student is doing a computational IS. So how are we integrating that into the curriculum to help students that maybe do a laboratory but still appreciate computational biology? So
the very first step that we are taking in that direction is the course Cell Physiology is mandatory for BCMB students, so the biochemistry and molecular biology students, but a lot of biology students also take that course. So it's a very popular upper level course. It's usually 2 big sections running in parallel, and that course was restructured from a traditional cell biology course to a course that is sort of sneakily introducing some concepts of computational and systems biology. So we are touching on the traditional aspects of how cells work, description, experimental data, and then we sort of also talk about how are some of these ideas general and play out over and over again with different molecular players, and how would you model that system? So we have the very first couple of concepts in that class, so students get an exposure and sometimes get really excited. And one of the things we also do in that class is they have a grant proposal project. So they have to write a one experimental aim proposal by the end. It's actually a video, so they don't write, they make a nice pitch for their proposal. And a lot of the topics I give them, a lot of topic choices, have to do with computational biology. So they really don't know what they're getting into when they choose those topics, and then I kind of guide them through, and often I find that some of those students end up in my group because they got really excited about, oh, how do we model this gigantic network that drives formation of a cancer cell, for example. So that's at one place of the curriculum where students come in from all over, and then they go on to do all kinds of things. And sometimes we end up having hallway conversations about, oh, I'm doing this experimental project, but could I model this? And then sometimes it works. And then other than that, we have now a really nice trio of classes that cover different aspects of computational biology. So bioinformatics was a class that was already developed by Professor Morgan and Sophia Bisa from computer science, where they tackle specifically how to work with genomic data. So that is actually a relatively popular course. And then now we have computational biology that I teach every other year, and then Bill Morgan is teaching computational genomics. So students get an opportunity to engage with these new areas of science in many, many different ways. And it's actually part of the requirement for the BCMB curriculum. And a lot of biology students actually do engage with it too. So does that answer your question?
That's great. Yeah. I'd like to open it up to the audience if you guys have questions.
How unique is Worcester in having computational biology the way we have it at an undergraduate level?
Given how difficult it was for me to find an external reviewer from a liberal arts college who could speak to my work, as of now, quite unique. So it's not, I'm not saying there's no other school. There are several well-known liberal arts schools which have a systems biology course or a bioinformatics course. But I think we are starting to offer breadth here that I have not really seen easily. And even these places are new. Job ads are out there. So when I was 4 years ago already, when I was looking on the job market, liberal arts schools are looking for this expertise. So I think it's catching on. People are starting to understand that this is something their students should be able to do before they go out into graduate school and industry as well. Industry has a wide array of jobs in that this expertise can help in. But I think we're still kind of a little bit ahead of the curve in that sense. That's my sense.
Would you be able to give an example of a neuroscience project, say, IS or faculty research that's possible now that wasn't possible before the building?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of what my lab looks at, or a lot of the students in my lab look at, are questions related to brain development, and we use the simple fruit fly as a model system of that. A lot of the proteins that are involved in those processes of brain development are very, very similar between vertebrates and invertebrates. The overall end result is a lot different, but the way that those proteins work is kind of the same, right? So we can actually kind of understand at the basic kind of cell biology level, the basic genetic or biochemical level, how those proteins work with one another. And so a lot of my students will end up doing like fruit fly brain dissections, which I always tell them, like, yes, this is difficult, just don't drink coffee before you do it, because you'll be amazed at how much your hands will shake just a little bit under the microscope. So, but yeah, so I have a decent number of students that will do that every year. And in the past, maybe 1 or 2 students a year would do projects like this, and mainly it was limited because all the microscopy that we had to do would either be sort of low, like kind of low resolution microscopy on campus, or we would on occasion be able to use the OARDC microscope, so the Ohio State Agricultural Research Development Center, which is nearby. So they have a microscope that we can use, but it's not ideal, right? Because we have to basically spend a whole afternoon going up there, and that it's just sort of time and cost preventative. But so now that we have this suite of microscopes on campus, basically we have the ability to sort of increase the number of students that can do projects like that, as well as sort of developing new types of neuroscience projects. So we also have some students, even outside of my group, that are doing microscopy-based experiments that sort of I'm kind of like consulting on, but previously I don't think those types of experiments would even have been feasible because we really didn't have the equipment at all to do those kind of things.
I would even add that we've got more microscopes that are integrated into the classroom
Right.
to help raise the skill level by the time they get to
Exactly, right. So
It's an expensive fly model too.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And the fly model is nice too, but I mean, you know, we're sort of, and we're also sort of building collaborations too between Worcester and a couple other schools nearby with just other colleagues that are involved in neuroscience. That, you know, now our students can see other areas of research that they can also become involved with, that, you know, that they just sort of get a better idea of what the collaborative nature of science is all about, I think.
We have time for one more question.
So with the computational science, I don't know how much interaction you might have with like biochemistry or even chemistry in terms of having access to those sorts of tools and capabilities.
Who's going to handle that one?
I have some students working on docking studies to try to find fragments of small molecules that might bind to the active site of a protein that I'm interested in studying, and that of course they are as well because they've signed on to do their IS project with me and they've chosen this. At present, they are able to do this work on their own laptops, but someday that might mean we need to expand capabilities, and then the first person I would ask about that would probably be Erzbet. So I can definitely see places where this would go forward, and there are other faculty in the chemistry department too who are doing other computational projects as well, and Paul would probably be able to speak to that more.
What we really have is an expanded toolkit, and I think as we pick up new research ideas that before we may have dismissed as being impossible or very, very challenging, I think now we've enhanced our capabilities and broadened our capabilities in being able to do things that would involve these advanced techniques.
Shall we move on to the final topic? How does the building help us integrate different programs, promote collaboration, and create community in the broadest sense?
So Miles and I are senior STEM zone interns, and what the STEM zone is, it's
Louder.
Oh, louder. Okay. So Miles and I are senior STEM zone interns, and what the STEM zone is, it's basically a place where students can come and get homework help, either in chemistry, biology, biochemistry, sometimes OChem, mostly intro courses, and we get a lot of freshmen and sophomores. And so through this STEM zone, we have seen a lot of different changes with the new building. Before, or 3 years ago when me and Miles started, we started off in Kittredge, so hosting our office hours in Kittredge. And that was a really big place to come and bring a lot of people. But we noticed that it was really off campus, or farther up north campus, and a lot of the upperclassmen who lived on south campus didn't really go there. And so the following year, we moved to Long Break, so within the library, so at the basement. And that was really a cramped kind of place because a lot of students go there to study, and us taking up their space there wasn't a very happy situation. So now we're here, we finally have our own room. We're at the end of this hall, and while the room may be small and cozy, it allows for that really intimate collaboration between student groups and their peer tutors within the class, their ZIs. And it also allows for us to be able to spread throughout the building. So we are able to easily access different classrooms within Williams and Severance, and that allows us to build those really great study sessions, those review sessions for exams. If there's too many people in the zone, we can just break out and form smaller sections of whatever we're teaching or tutoring. And it's been a really pleasant experience to have that, our own space within Williams. And a lot of students have really been coming to collaborate and just finding other people who have similar interests in their classes. Yeah.
And then continuing on with that, the student-student interactions within the new building has greatly been exaggerated by this. To start with, the zone is now open for 5 days a week. We used to be only open at 3 times. So now we're able to work with students for more hours in the week. The Knowlton Commons allows for other students to come in that are outside of STEM, but STEM students specifically, it's a nice warm atmosphere. There's nice trees and clouds. And then for us, if you have office hours with professors, it's easy to go between classes, grab something to eat, and go talk to them, talk to students, get coffee. And then you have the individual research areas where you can go and get right next to, or like the glass windows between the professor offices and the hallway. Students can come into there, they can work individually or within groups. I don't think a lot of students do work there individually. I feel like if there is somebody that's there by themselves, it's either like an off hour or they're waiting on somebody. And then seniors, we have our senior areas where our senior write-up areas between our labs. So we oftentimes have our advising meetings in the mornings or in the afternoons, depending on their advisor. And we come in, we talk about what we're gonna do that day, and then we go into the lab. It's really convenient, and it's not, I feel like it's really nice to have a collaborative space.
Yeah. We like to joke around saying that us science students now have a social life because we can see everyone just walking by and we can say hi. So it's really great.
All right, well, we, being environmental studies, well, so far, at this point, it's Dr. Matt Mariola and I that are in the program, so it's a small program. And again, in the fall of 2019, we will be starting the major, which again, we're very excited about. Now, I can say that being in environmental studies, we're kind of in a unique situation. Because the way that I like to think about it is that environmental studies is kind of like a buffet. So we like to fill our plates with all different kinds of disciplines. And sometimes we make strange combinations in our research and our teaching interests. So for us, the ability to be able to collaborate is incredibly important because we do work that spans the life sciences, that spans the social sciences, the humanities. And so to be able to be in close contact with folks and colleagues from the life sciences is extremely important to us. And particularly to me, I do work in applied insect ecology and food systems. And so having the opportunity to really work and be in close contact with folks in biology and BCME and chemistry has been wonderful. And the fact that we also have such a beautiful research space. We have an incredible lab in the greenhouse, which we are planning on using not only for our classes, which are field-based. We have 2 gardens in which we take students out. We have them grow all kinds of interesting veggies and do small-scale experiments. But we also have a lab that will allow us to replicate some of the things that we do in the garden in a lab space setting. So it's an exciting time for us as a program to be in this building, to work with such wonderful people, and to have great students as well. So we're very excited about this opportunity right now.
I was going to ask something about the students. Can you say something, because we're not normally here after hours, the faculty that is, but can you guys say something about what's happening after hours here?
Oh yeah, we're here. Yeah, so obviously you can see the beautiful sunset from the windows. It's great. But after hours, it's actually really calm. A lot of students come in here because it's a really nice space to just come and relax while you're studying. So all the open concepts, all the glass, all the whiteboards really helps us spread out and kind of be in a clear mindset to study and to work with groups. We work in the labs after hours as well, and it's easy to kind of keep tabs on each other. So if we're going from one lab to another lab, we know there will be students working in there even if there aren't professors. And we can still ask each other questions and kind of make sure we're on the right track. Do you have any?
Yeah, I have no problems coming in on the weekend. Like, honestly, right after this, I probably will be in the lab, and I'm not bothered by it. Honestly, I probably come in, do a quick experiment, and between that, I'll do a little bit of homework while something's going, and then I'll just walk right back in. I mean, on the weekends, it's kind of less convenient because I can't use Knowlton for like meals, so I have to go to Lowry. But other than that, I have no problems.
But the cafe was a big hit.
Yeah. It's nice.
I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions.
With these excellent facilities, what effect do you foresee in bringing companies in here to use the facilities on a joint basis with students?
Bringing companies.
Companies come here and say, we have this research project. We want to use your facilities, we want to use your students.
I mean, Paul would be the best. Paul Evans.
Sure. We have a few connections. One program that we have ongoing is a summer research program called AMRI, Applied Methods Research Experiences, I think. It's AMRI. That is almost designed around the very situation that you're describing, where a company may have a logistical issue or a side project or a problem they want to address, and they do have summer research students who will help on those problems. Some of those problems are tackled here on campus, and some are off-site at the site of the company. We have some ties in the Department of Chemistry. Paul Edmiston is affiliated with ABS Materials, which produces a swellable organosilica. I've got some posters down the hall, but he's got a company that they have exchanged equipment and expertise and knowledge, and part of my research even deals with that material. So there are some interfaces between the business sector and the students. And I think between that and Apex and our Center for Entrepreneurship, I think we're always looking for those opportunities, and we're always trying to get the word out there that the College of Worcester is open for business.
I would encourage you to explore that, because from a business standpoint, there's a major trend not to do the research only in the business sectors.
Absolutely.
But to do it in the universities and colleges, to get the students involved.
Absolutely.
I think the wonderful equipment that came in will help us with that a little bit, because it's much newer, much modern, more modern. Yep.
I know this predates this building, but one of the other gentlemen referred to the old days. Back in the old days, the only people who knew about our independent study project was ourselves and our faculty advisor, maybe a friend if you talk to him about it. But my understanding is now on campus, I assume it's for the sciences as well as humanities, that the students will complete their project and then present it to the student population and anybody else who's interested.
We have actually we have an example of one of the poster symposiums that we have. You can see one up by the atrium, in the classroom across from the atrium, from the Commons. There's a bunch of posters that the students presented to each other in biology. So you can see a good example of that.
Actually, that's...
Every spring, you have the symposium.
And we have the IS
Symposium.
All over campus.
Well, we're going to be really excited to have it here.
Yeah.
The sciences have been all over the place in cramped little hallways, and now we'll have it in this beautiful space.
And how about, do senior projects or faculty projects get incorporated into scientific conferences, and what happens there?
Yeah, I mean, I know that for my own group, we took 3 or 4 students to a meeting a month ago down near Columbus. So, and that's just one example, and I know lots of other faculty members do the same thing. So, there's a good number of people who will go to local meetings and some national meetings. And some of those students that will attend those meetings are younger, sort of sophomore researchers, but then others are sort of seniors that are sort of, finished that kind of culminating experience. But
Yeah, I have the same experience. Every year, 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 of my students will attend a national conference. There's no regional conference in computational biology yet. That'd be nice to fix. But yeah, so we go to a national conference if we can afford it. If it's within the continental US, usually then it's possible. And they present their posters. And this year, I'm actually sending them early before they can have a poster to learn about cancer signaling. So 3 of them are going to Cold Spring Harbor in a week, I think, to a conference to learn, and then they'll come back and continue their IS and hopefully go to a different one to present. So we do it a lot, all of us, I think. The faculty, yeah.
All the time.
Have you found that there's more students now with this new facility, the equipment, everything, this wonderful faculty, there's more going to major in these sciences?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We exceeded our wildest expectations.
Already.
It's already a hit.
Yeah.
Brian Carazia and I had a running bet on what percentage of the incoming first-year class would enroll in general chemistry. If you round up, I win, but the true numbers are Brian won. It was around 40% of the incoming class took some form of chemistry. Biology, I think, does very, big numbers there as
A
well.
lot of sections of intro bio running. Yeah.
You know, good news, bad news.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take it.
A question for our 2 seniors. Have you noticed any changes in the faculty in the short time that the building's been open?
Besides the grants.
Let's see.
Communication-wise, it's much easier. We were here when material was here, and just being able to find professors just drastically easier. Way easier. Less emails.
Yeah, we can usually find them in their labs, which is great. Definitely a lot easier to contact. They also seem to be a lot cheerier. I feel like over the past years, since material was torn down and then since the transition of the new building, we've definitely had a lot more communication with the professors, both in and out of the classroom. There's a lot more one-on-one, which is what Worcester is known for, their mentored research and their small class sizes. It's been really more, I'm lacking the word, but it's just been really more fulfilling as a student. So it's been definitely empowering, just knowing that you can go to your professor, know where to find them, see them in the hallway, say hi, get coffee with them. It's just been really nice.
Any other questions? Be about anything you want.
I'm curious about the, with the new focus on computational biology and the new facility, the computing capabilities that came with the building, or do you access outside resources to do that, or how does that work?
So my research needs decent computers, but it doesn't need supercomputers. So that's sort of specific to my area, that you can kind of run it on your laptop, but if your laptop is 4 years old and half dead, which is the normal senior laptop, then no, then that's a pain. So we have 6 brand new iMacs right now, and that's plenty for my research group. So it's fantastic. They can access any of them. So for the student who's in a position to run a ton of code right now, they can run all 6 machines overnight and nobody cares. And then other times, other students can access the same machines. So it's really flexible and works really well for me. If I ever need more computing power, it's actually way cheaper to just pay for that on the cloud, so just go to Amazon, run your thing, and be done with it, than to house equipment, since I don't need it on a daily basis. So that's pretty much what we need. We need a decent newish machine, but a normal desktop rather than supercomputers.
So tell us about the activity in the summer. So you do have some research, but you've got this amazing space. Do you see new opportunities for summer programmatic that was not really something in your thinking before?
Yes.
I would say just a very physical fact, Charles, that we're bringing all these programs together under one roof. It used to be much more disjointed, and I think we're better equipped to share equipment, to share knowledge and expertise, And let's not forget the social life, right? If we have 5 different buildings that have research going on, it's harder for those students to interact than if they were all here in Williams and Severance. So programmatically, we usually do really, really well on the technical programming. And we almost have to, well, we don't have to, but we get students out there to interact with each other socially after hours. We had a kickball game Paul Edmiston organized last summer. Things like, ice cream socials and things like that. Absolutely, having people in one place brings us together.
I will add that we have gotten more opportunities to host regional meetings here. In the sense that I anticipate we will. I've already had people contact me about that, whether the space would be suitable. So I think that's some of what you're talking about. But it's not
and
restricted
things
to
like,
the summer.
so there are universities, like Johns Hopkins does STEM programs all around the East Coast corridor, right? So there are a lot of these high school programs where you bring in really top high school students, and it accomplishes a couple things. You're leveraging introducing them to science in a way that they haven't done before, but you're also introducing a college that they might want to look at one day. So, and I worked at Cold Spring Harbor for just recently for a year and a half, so I know their programs really well, and same thing, that they just, it's a very, so you've got this asset that is really world-class. I mean, honestly, world-class. I would challenge you to think about its use in the summer. I realize you want some maintenance time and all of that, but do think about what you might do, whether it's collaborations with like Jeff said, Dow, and he's taking students there, but there might be greater cross-fertilization in terms of even having students here that are doing externships with companies. They might physically do them here though. There might be opportunities for high school STEM programs where you decide you're going to run a one-week camp and you beta test it and you see how it goes. But
actually, we're already doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are, because you really have an asset, and you want to really think about how you can best leverage it 12 months a year.
Absolutely. We'll be finding that out, field testing it.
Yeah.
We have a NSF grant in which we're collaborating with a University of Georgia professor to run STEM high school workshops here. And we've done it wherever,
right.
The last 2 years, wherever we could find and scramble for some space. So quite excited to see about how it's going to feel to be in this space doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
May I say something very quickly? There's an important group we haven't talked about, and that's our support staff. We have an absolutely top-notch group in the form of administrative support, stockroom, instrument maintenance and technicians, machinists, the list goes on, is that there is a fantastic group of people who support us, both the students and the faculty alike, and allow us to do the things that we do. As I tell our staff, they have the unenviable job of trying to make me look good, and they're able to do it. So I want to make sure we acknowledge the sometimes less visible contributions that group makes.
I think on that fine note, we're going to thank our panel. As many of you know, there will be a formal ceremony upstairs in the Commons, and so I invite you all to move up there. Thank you, guys. Well, great job.